Hey guys, welcome to JReviews. I am Iceman, and the game covered today is Scorn. Scorn was developed by Ebb Software and published by Kepler Interactive. It was released on October 14th of 2022. The game is a mixture of walking simulator in the early segments, expands to include puzzle elements soon after, and then adds first-person shooter gameplay elements after that. So it is a real mixture of genres. I'd also add horror to that as well due to the extreme amounts of gore present. There is a lot of gore in this game. A lot. Now, the story and narrative to Scorn is that there is no story and there is no narrative beyond what you see. It is completely driven by your own visual experience. That's it. You find no text in the game, no one talks to you, and no story is ever revealed to you from start to finish. The story behind it all will be as much of a mystery at the end of the game to that of what it was at the beginning. If anything, by the end of the game you'll have far more questions than even you had at the beginning. The general feel to this game is one of dread and the feeling of walking through the ruins of places long destroyed, long before you came to be there. With the heavy H.R. Geiger look of the levels, it also instills a feeling of being inside an alien hive or colony, a place that is just completely alien. As for other games that Scorn reminds me of, the main two that spring to mind are games and movies within the Alien series, as well as an old adventure game series back in the 90s called Darkseid. Each of those has H.R. Geiger influences as well. Beyond that, the game is unique all to itself. Speaking on graphics, this is one of the high points of the game. The look of the levels is fantastic, with the completely alien look to everything. The way you see old ruins decaying and dissolving into the winds, and just the overall look is great. I found myself often just staring at the scenery a lot in this game. There is a lot of beautiful things to look at, everywhere throughout all the levels. Now, the music in the game, for the vast majority of it, is pure ambience, which works quite well, giving further to the feel of everything. There are, however, some music tracks that play at key points. All of those were pretty good. Music in the game, for the vast majority of it, is pure ambience, which works quite well, giving further to the feel of everything. There are, however, some music tracks that play at key points. All of those were pretty good. Now onto gameplay. Firstly, the game comes in 5 acts, which vary in the types of gameplay present. Starting in Act 1, the game is more of a walking simulator as you walk through linear areas and occasionally solve time-consuming puzzles. By Act 2, the puzzles ramp up in difficulty, and you face your first enemies, though they're quite easy to take on. The third act is when things start to get more action-packed, with more of a first-person shooter style introduced, with some very difficult battles. You will die a lot in this act. Puzzles in this one are very much on the hard end. Use of a walkthrough will be your best friend during this. Act 4 has the most action focus out of the 5 acts present in the game, with the vast majority of it spent fighting the various enemies. There is one main puzzle present in the level, again, best with the walkthrough handy. This act, like Act 3, is quite fun overall. The final act has more of a puzzle adventure slant with almost no combat at all except for the only boss battles in the entire game that are present in that one level. Beyond that, it's far more about working out where to use items and how to get past obstacles. It's here that you will get to the game's ending. So the ending that you encounter at the end of this act is quite depressing, and it is a real letdown, as it makes the entire experience feel pointless, as things are no better than when you first ventured forth. If anything, it's worse. This, combined with the severe lack of alternate paths and endings, means that there isn't really a whole lot of replayability present. Once you've played through it once, you've seen everything. Now, speaking on level structure. The game, for the most part, takes a very linear approach in its levels. Acts 3 and 4, though, are the exception, as they offer branching paths, some with optional areas with ammo and health rewards at the end of them. It makes me wonder why they didn't just do that with the rest of the levels, because the rest all feature a very linear style approach, with only at most the illusion of choice, if you are given multiple paths, they both lead to the same point in the end. Now, enemy variety is low with only 4 main enemy types of organic style opponents and 1 boss type. The organic enemies are primarily ranged opponents, with only one of them being melee focused. The one boss enemy is quite the difference, with a mixture of ranged and melee attacks, and makes for a challenging battle. The shooting system is pretty atypical of most first-person shooter style games. Aim, shoot, that's it. Though I will note that the combat system to the game is quite slow and clunky, which can make battles difficult. Starting out you have no weapon at all, but towards the 3/4 way mark of the first act you get your first weapon, which looks like a gun, but is actually more like a drill and can be used to activate machinery. For me, I call it the stapler, due to the noise it makes when you attack enemies with it. Ah! For a long time, this will be the only weapon that you have in the game. In the third act, you will require the pistol, which looks more like a shotgun, but does some pretty decent damage compared to the stapler. In the fourth act, you will acquire the shotgun. This is the best weapon in the game, as it does high damage on anything you shoot it at. The catch is that it only holds 3 shots at a time. The final weapon is the grenade launcher, which you acquire during the game's final act, but only get to use it against 1 enemy. Beyond that, it is only used to get past obstacles, so its combat usefulness is next to 0, as you acquire it not long before the end of the game. Speaking overall on the game as a whole, its strengths are in the atmosphere and the look of the levels, and just acts 3 and 4 for the most part. Its negatives are the combat, the difficulty level of the puzzles, the linear levels, and the ending, which, as I mentioned previously, is a major downer and ruins a lot of the experience once you have experienced it. On the subject of multiplayer, there is no multiplayer at the time of this review, single player only. On the subject of bugs, there was almost none at all, though at one point in the game a cutscene happened and I found myself stuck on a wall. Beyond that, there was nothing else. So the game's pretty good in that regard. On the subject of DLC and expansions, the only thing that's currently released for the game as of this review is a digital art book, and that's it. Overall, Scorn is an interesting game, but not a good one. For the sum of its parts, it will ultimately leave you feeling empty and depressed with how it all ends, but the game has a genuine beauty in how the levels look, and a unique style. All in all, I would say to only play the game if the look of it interests you. If it doesn't, then there's nothing there that's going to keep you interested in it. I enjoyed it during my playthrough, but I'd never play it again. One time was enough for me, and that's it. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more videos in this series, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and also just check out my channel for further videos and you'll find out what else is available. And with that, this is Iceman of JReviews signing out. Guys, have a good one.